This is Dr. Charles Foster with Foster and Wellness, and I'm excited to bringing you a webinar today on the subject, Your Health is Your Wealth. I had a lot of anxiety about getting this set up because we're using some new technology, so bear with me. I'm hoping that we're streaming live. I think my feedback so far is that we're streaming live, and I'm hoping that we've got it recording as well. So anyway, I want to again, as I said, welcome you, and I hope that we'll be able to contain this to about 25, 30 minutes, so hopefully we can catch you on your lunch hour. So let me jump ahead to our first slide, and what I want to do is to tell you that investing in your health is probably one of the greatest things you'll ever do for yourself. And the converse of that, basically, is, again, it can be said this way. On the other hand, sickness, if you don't invest in your health, you're going to get sickness. And on the one hand, investing in your health can create wealth. On the other hand, investing in sickness can create some significant deficit as far as your finances are concerned. The only positive to sickness is that as an expense is that it is a tax deductible expense. So at the end of the year, you can deduct all your medical bills, all that kind of stuff. But this is not a tax deduction you want. It's not like depreciation on a business or equipment or something like this. These are not tax deductions that you want. You do not want to suffer and be sick, and then at the end of the year think that you're going to be ahead for having that deduction. So before we start, I want to just kind of show you. I'm going to do several things over the course of our time together. But one of the first things I want to do is I want to just tell you a quick story about a patient of mine a number of years ago who had a legitimate, if you will, medical expense that he didn't necessarily have to have. This gentleman came in to see me in the office, and he had shoulder pain, and he wondered if a chiropractor could help him with the shoulder pain. And so we said, yeah, we would love to try that, but let's take a look at your neck, because it was our opinion that the shoulder wasn't really the site of the lesion. It wasn't the real problem, although he thought he had arthritis in the shoulder. So we did an examination, and we actually found that there was arthritis in his neck. There was degeneration in his neck. But I said, I think we can still help you with your shoulder, but we need to be able to adjust your neck for a while. So we set him up on a care plan, and we started adjusting him. And in about 2 weeks, his neck was better, his shoulder was better. And he said, this is really crazy. He says, I've had a stiff neck for years. And he said, I thought it was a family thing because my father had arthritis in his neck. He had a stiff neck. Mom had a stiff neck. And so I thought it was just something that genetically I had to live with. But he says, now that I've been under care, I can turn my head like this. And he said, I wish I'd have known last summer. I said, what do you mean? Why would this have benefited you, beyond just the obvious, not being in pain and being able to turn your head? Why would it have benefited you last summer? He said, well, it's been so long, this having a stiff neck, that it was hard for me to drive my car. It was hard for me to pull up to intersections and turn left and turn right. But more so, it was hard for me to back out of my driveway onto this busy road that I live on. And he said, so in order to address that problem, he said, I actually put a circular driveway in the front of my yard. So I have this very ugly driveway that wraps around my front yard. It doesn't look as near as nice as this one's going to look on this example I gave you. But he said, I have this circular driveway in my yard. I've got asphalt instead of grass. And he said, I spent about between $25,000 and $3,000 to get it done. And he said, it's just weird. He said, if I could just turn my neck, I'd have saved myself some money, and I'd have a much more beautiful yard. So that's just a glimpse into what we're talking about as far as what poor health how that can contribute negatively to our lives. So I have a question for you. Well, the choices that you make today, are they going to contribute to your future health, or are they going to contribute to your future wealth or debt? So on the one hand, we're talking about health, and then we're rephrasing it and saying wealth or debt. So that's a legitimate question. I want you to think about that as we go forward. First off, I want you to know that medical bills are the number one reason that people in our country file for bankruptcy. Maybe you knew that, but that was kind of a surprising thing to me to understand that. The other thing is I want you to know that 2.4 million people between the ages of 35 and 44 are going to file for medical bankruptcy this year. 56 million of those between the ages of 19 and 64 are going to struggle with their medical bills. And you can see the numbers down there that, by the time you get to your 70s, you're spending $10,000 a year on your medical bills. Medical bill costs, that basically for 15 million, it's going to clean out their savings. For another 11 million, there's 11 million extra credit cards that have been obtained in order to pay off medical debt, but that medical debt is transferred into a credit card debt, which the interest rate is 17% with a late penalty and sometimes up to almost 30%. 10 million people cannot afford to pay their bills because of the medical bills. They can't pay their rent, they can't pay their mortgage, they can't pay their food or their cable, the car payments, and so on. Healthcare costs, I think you can see, are breaking the bank. Another thing to think about is how the cost of a heart attack, for instance, and this varies widely across the country. If you're in Arkansas, in some areas of Arkansas, some hospitals, you might get away for as little as $3,300 for the acute care of your heart attack. But in California, that might be $92,000. Now, they're going to bill a lot more stuff than they're probably going to get paid. Fact is, they might get paid a fraction of that cost. The insurance company is going to maybe pay the hospital $6,500 if you're covered, and they might make them write some of that off. You might have to assume some of that. But you can see it's not inexpensive, and they're billing at astronomical rates. Now, these are the direct proximal charges, but there are indirect costs as well associated with heart disease. For instance, if you have to have a heart valve procedure, $53,000. Coronary bypass, the average in the country is $38,000. The pacemaker, $33,000. If you have a stroke, there's these costs as well. The average cost of care for a patient up to 90 days after a stroke, $15,000. 10% of the patients have a bill of $35,000. But the lifetime cost going forward, taking care of the after effects of your stroke, can be $100,000. Here's a list of some other conditions. Colectomy, basically removal of the colon or a partial removal of the colon, $31,000. The bladder being bladder cancer, $42,000. Pancreas cancer is $56,000. Rectum cancer, $33,000. Prostate can be $14,000. Pulmonary, taking off a lobe of one of the lungs, $39,000. All very expensive things. You can see how a person could get behind and maybe be under threat of losing their home or something else. The office visits for chemotherapy. 1 month, an office visit can be $10,000, or 1 month of care. If it's inpatient, if it's in the office. At the outpatient department, it could be $13,000. 6 months, it can go up to $49,000 in an office visit, and $61,000 for the hospital outpatient department. You can see these numbers. Basically, the costs are different depending on the type of cancer. The most expensive was the colon cancer, which we saw. The average cost for all lengths of treatment, averaging 3.8 months in office and 3.4 months in the hospital, ranged from $28,000 to $34,000. There's also additional costs associated with cancer treatment. For breast cancer over age 65, you're going to have some ongoing costs of $23,000 or $712 a month, and if the mean lifetime cost could get up to $110,000. There's cancer drugs; they can be $10,000 to $35,000 a month. One of my patients this morning was telling me he takes 1 pill a week. He buys 3 pills at a time, or the insurance company does, and they are those 3 pills costing $6,600. So basically, each pill costs $2,200. 1 pill takes it once a week, $2,200. It's crazy what we're paying for healthcare in this country. It's not even healthcare; it's sick care. And diabetes, the cost, depending on how bad your diabetes is and the type of treatment you have, can range anywhere from $13,000 to $25,000 a year. And what we understand is a person with diabetes is going to have 2.3% greater debt than someone without diabetes. It's going to affect 11.2% women over 20, 13.6% of men over 20, and literally nearly a quarter of our population over the age of 65 is dealing with diabetes. And we could go on about the costs, the direct and indirect costs associated. We could talk about the lost opportunities, the lost income, the vacations not taken, the experiences that weren't enjoyed, the family members that weren't made, the job advancement that was not taken and enjoyed. And these things are the things on the right-hand side of this are all things that are having opportunity costs, that are having health costs. It's obesity, smoking, alcohol, drug abuse, prescription use, whether it's over the counter or prescribed, or illegal drugs. Lack of regular exercise is costing you something. Unhealthy relationships are costing you something. And these costs are incalculable. But there's many, many more. So we want to address one of the very big and underappreciated lesions or pathologies out there that is causing people to be sick. And that particular lesion that's causing people to be sick, causing them to take medications, causing them to miss vacations, causing them to not be able to work, is something called a vertebral subluxation complex. Okay? So we say that it is a major cause of health-related death. And I can tell you from my practice, there are people who, because of a subluxation, are missing work. Because of a subluxation, they're not able to do a certain thing. Because of a subluxation, they weren't able to take a vacation. Because of a subluxation, they weren't able to be promoted in a job. So what's a subluxation? We're going to talk about that. The World Health Organization says that it is a lesion or dysfunction or of a joint or motion segment in which misalignment, movement, integrity, and or physiological function are altered. Although contact between joint surfaces remains intact, it is essentially a functional entity which may influence biomechanical and neural integrity. Now remember that phraseology. May influence biomechanical and neural integrity, okay? Another definition from the National Board of Chiropractic Examiners: every practicing chiropractor in the country had to pass a series of examinations by this National Board of Examiners. They say that the specific focus of chiropractic practice is known as the chiropractic subluxation or joint dysfunction, if you want to call it that. We like subluxation. A subluxation is a health concern that manifests itself in the skeletal joints and through complex anatomical and physiological relationships. And listen, affects the nervous system and may lead to reduced function, disability, or stress. Okay? Remember those phrases. Now I'm going to show you something. I want you to recall an actor, a well-known actor by the name of Christopher Reeve. He had a fall off of a horse, and that fall caused him to fracture his neck. And when he fell off that horse, he suffered biomechanical and neural integrity loss. Okay, the spine fracture affected the spinal cord and the brainstem, and it affected the nerve system, and it contributed to reduced function, disability, and stress. Okay, so while he suffered a spinal cord injury, and this is the type of injury that goes beyond what we refer to as a subluxation, I want you to understand that he suffered a massive trauma to his nervous system that caused almost complete dysfunction in his system. But what I want you to understand that there are many shades of gray. There is not just 100% function over here and no function over here and nothing in between. That doesn't make any sense. In between, we have varying degrees of neurological dysfunction that can cause problems with digestion and elimination and so on. Okay, so as I say here, the subluxation is a similar kind of injury or lesion, but of less severe nature. The subluxation does not usually cause quadriplegia or complete loss of muscle control or entire systems to shut down. And the effects of the subluxation are less obvious and very insidious. So insidious that we just think that, well, we're getting older or we're getting out of shape. I haven't been eating right, and so this is what's happening. And it's genetic. My parents had the same kind of thing. And so we often are suffering from sicknesses that are related to our nervous system, as certainly as Christopher Reeve's illnesses were related to his nervous system, but they're so insidious that we chalk them up and assign them some other blame factor, if you will. So this is a statement by Suzanne Groh, a medical doctor. She says spinal cord injuries eventually affect virtually every organ of the body and lead to what is known as accelerated aging. Now, our friend Christopher Reeve basically suffered a spinal cord injury, which caused his life to be shortened. There's no question about it. It caused him to have organs that slowly shut down over time. But relative to a subluxation, which you or I might suffer from, they happened at a much faster rate. But nerve interference is nerve interference is nerve interference. And when the body is not functioning well, the body is decaying. It is building sickness into itself rather than wellness into itself. So we are suffering probably some slower declining health issues and moving more certainly towards death, but at a much less rate than, say, a person with spinal cord injuries like Christopher Reeve's. So as I said, few of us are going to sustain an injury like Christopher Reeve, but most of us are going to experience a measurable level of dysfunction in our spine. And when I say measurable, if a person is examined by a chiropractor or a neurologist, we can often measure the dysfunction by a postural change, by a nerve conduction study, by a muscle test or muscle strength, by looking at a number of things, decreased reflexes, and looking at your body's presenting symptoms. All of these things are ways that we can measure a level of dysfunction. This detectable indicator of neuromuscular function can be lack of symmetry in how the body works, or we can palpate it in spasm, or we can palpate it with edema or a swelling. All of these are components of what we refer to as a subluxation complex. Now, I want you to think about this thing. You might think about it in terms of Christopher Reeve's injury or anything else, or any other type of injury. The nervous system functions like an electrical system, okay? And we know from an electrical system that basically electrical wires are covered with rubberized coating, a rubberized coating. And that rubberized coating allows the electrical impulse that's flowing through that copper wire to remain at a higher integrity level. But as soon as we were to strip away a little bit of that wire, what we would end up noticing is that there is some energy that is dissipated, even if there's no contact with the outside world. The fact that that wire is open and bare and exposed will cause some energy to be dissipated. And so the target organ, like the little motor that we see on the screen there, the target organ is not going to get the same amount of energy. And that motor has been designed to function with a certain level of energy. And when it doesn't get that motor can run hot, or that motor can be less efficient, and it will cause the motor to burn out prematurely. Now imagine if that exposed conducting material like the copper wiring touches something, it actually causes a short circuit, and so that can happen as well. So what we know from neurology is that when there's pressure on the nervous system, it changes the electrical conductive capacity of the nervous system. We actually hook people up to, the neurologists hook people up to EMG machines, electromyography machines, and they can literally measure the rate at which an impulse travels through the body. And there is a optimal rate. And so we can say that a person's nervous system is healthy, or we can say that a person's nervous system is somewhat frustrated or short-circuited. And in the chiropractic terminology, we can say that it is subluxated. So basically what we have here is a picture of the body's version of electrical system. And so what you see is the brain as the sort of the originator of the source of energy. And then down through the spinal column, there's the spinal cord, and the spinal cord has numerous offshoots, or numerous branches, or nerve roots we call them, and those nerve roots then carry information, carry electrochemical energy to all these different body parts that are represented there, whether it's the heart or the lungs, the stomach, the bowels, the bladder, the spleen. And so what I want you to infer from this, and we know this from science, that if there's a pressure on the nerve system, somewhere near the spine or spinal cord or near the brainstem, then we can actually have an organ that begins to not function the way it's supposed to. So you could get pressure on the nervous system at a place that is responsible for conducting energy to the heart, and you could cause the heartbeat to beat faster. You could cause the heart to beat slower, or maybe it would be irregular. And I've seen many times in our practice where people would have irregular heartbeat, and an adjustment causes that heartbeat to become regular. We've seen many times in our practice where people have high blood pressure, and the adjustments to the spine cause the blood pressure to be reduced. We've seen people who had high blood sugar or low blood sugar, and in a test we did in our office, we saw the adjustments cause the blood sugar to move towards the more desirable mean. For instance, if before the adjustment their blood sugar was high, the adjustment brought it down to the desirable mean. If before the adjustment the blood sugar was low, the adjustment caused it to move towards the mean. So we were able to show you that when you're adjusted, that it caused the body to go back to where the desired level of performance. I've seen adjustments lower fevers and so on. So we don't treat fevers, and we're not treating blood sugar problems. We are treating the nervous system. And when the nervous system can do what it's supposed to do, it tries to make the body healthy. That's the exciting thing about what we do. So what does that mean to you? If you have a subluxation, you are likely starting to get slowly sick and you don't realize it. You don't necessarily feel it. Pain fibers are only a small portion of the fibers that are in our body. The rest of them are motor and functional fibers that tell the body how to work. And as I said before, you're chalking your discomfort and your symptoms to some old injuries, the normal aging process, and genetics. But the truth is, organs without proper nerve supply are organs without proper function, and without proper function, that organ is sick, and you are going to be taking medications for addressing the symptoms, and yet if you are addressing the symptoms, you're not really addressing the cause of the problem. I want you to think about this. One of the things I was reading as I was preparing for this was an observation that somebody else made. And they said, basically what we have in our country are a whole host of chronic health problems. We have arthritis, which is a chronic degenerative disease. We have diabetes, which is a chronic degenerative disease. We have high blood pressure and arteriosclerosis, which are chronic degenerative diseases. Most of the things that present in a doctor's office today are chronic degenerative diseases. And yet we are taking an acute care approach to dealing with chronic things. So what does acute mean? If I sprain my ankle, I've got an acute injury in my ankle, and the acute care model would be to put ice on that ankle to get the swelling down. Okay? If I have a chronically sprained ankle, I need to probably do something else. I might even have to do surgery. I might have to have a long-term program and some rehabilitation for that ankle, but it needs something more than just the immediate need addressed. So here we'll use blood pressure as one, but we could say this about everyone that I mentioned. Blood pressure is a chronic degenerative problem, chronic degenerative heart vascular problem. And so every day we take an acute measure to get it down. We take a medication to push the blood pressure down. But if we don't take that medication the next day, the blood pressure moves back up. And so we take the medication and pushes it back down. And if we don't take the medication, it comes back up. So we are in a short-term basis pushing it down and pushing it down and pushing it down every single day when we have a long-term high blood pressure problem, which can only be addressed by changing our behaviors, changing our exercise habits, changing our stress levels, changing our dietary habits. But we all agree, and your medical doctor or physician would agree, almost every case of blood pressure would go down if people would change their habits. But rather than changing our habits, we're taking acute care. It's high today, let's put it down. Okay? So the idea is this: subluxations are often the cause of some of these things. 18% of all nerve fibers in the human body are designed to produce pain. And when that specific nerve is being pinched, you're going to feel some pain. But 82% of the nerve fibers don't carry pain. And so it's possible that you could have nerve pressure that is causing your body to dysfunction and not give you pain. Okay? Big important thing to think about. So what's the bottom line? Poor function leads to bad health, and bad health causes us to spend money on our health care, and that can lead to what we call sick debt. Vertebral subluxation misalignment will cause decreased mental impulses in the brain and the body connection. And if you don't have those mental impulses flowing through your body in the appropriate level of integrity, there's going to be less life in the body. And when there's less life in the body, there's more sickness in the body. So I want you to just look at this. This is a top-down view of the very first vertebra in your neck. Your head sits on those two little pedestals, those two little oval things on the side there, and in the upper part of that ring, the base of your skull rests on that. And through that little dark space in the middle where it says vertebral foramen, that's where your brain stem goes through that particular space. And when that is in its right position, then the body is able to function well. But when that gets out of position, when it slides this way, or if it starts twisting and turning, it can put pressure on the spinal column, put pressure on the brain stem, which is the part of your brain that is responsible for your body's sort of ongoing natural functions, whether it's digestion and breathing and heart rate and all those kind of things. Okay, very, very important. So any kind of misalignment can twist or irritate or short circuit the nerve fibers of the brain stem. Now, in this lateral view of the neck, this is a colorized view of like a CAT scan, if you will. And basically what we see is the brain stem is where many of the body's systems are regulated. And it's that area that's highlighted where it says brainstem and the little arrow, the little lines pointing off to it. It's that area where Christopher Reeve suffered his terrible fracture. And that's why he had entire systems in his body shut down. It's why he couldn't move his arms and his feet. It's why he had to have assistance in breathing, because the breathing centers were affected as well as so many other centers. Now, what I want you to see here is as an X-ray and then a CT scan of a similar area of the spine. In the CT scan on the right side, you can observe a very narrowed pinched cord. The white area up there where it says wide, that area is wide. That's where the brainstem is coming down. And then the little narrow little red track there is an area where it's pinched, where there's what we call spinal stenosis. And then it widens out again. But this person is not going to have very good health. And one of the things that contributes to that is the lack of a normal curve in the spine. And the picture on the left where you see the X-ray, you see a similar little curved line. That's where the spinal cord goes through. And if that area gets twisted or pinched or rotated, or if the disc begins to deteriorate and is pressed back into the spinal column, it can cause dramatic health problems. It's estimated that 92% of the time, these lesions don't produce typical back and neck pain. So you would think, oh, that person must have neck pain. They don't have symptoms to tell you that anything's wrong. They do, however, cause organs to function at less than 100%. And I want you to think about this concept. If it's only 2% reduction of function, it's still sick. If you're not getting 100% of the function in your nervous system, then your body is sick and it's building sickness into your body. And if it builds in sickness 2% every single day, 2% every single week, we're going to get sick faster and faster, and our problems are going to get bigger and bigger. So, as I said, 2% sick over time is going to increase the dysfunction, and this creates what we call a lack of ease in the body, okay? The lack of ease we also refer to in chiropractic as dis-ease, and dis-ease is when the body's resistance is down. I'm not sick yet, but if I continue to have dis-ease in my body becomes fertile soil for disease. Okay, so one way I think of it is like this. So I'm not sick today, but just for instance, let's say that this last week I stayed up and I watched the World Series, so I was up late every night, and because I was staying up late every night, I was eating chips and nachos, and maybe I had an adult beverage, and then I slept late, and I didn't, because I slept late, I didn't have time to exercise, so I didn't do that, and my job is, let's say my job is stressful. What I'm creating in my body is a state of dis-ease, okay? Now, I'm not diseased yet. I don't have a cold. I don't have a flu or any of that kind of stuff. But if you walked into my office today with your cold, because I've been in a state of dis-ease or lowered resistance, you sneeze in my space, I'm much more likely to get your cold. I'm much more likely to get your flu because I'm in a weakened state. I'm in a state of dis-ease. And when I'm in a state of dis-ease, I'm fertile ground to develop disease. Okay? And the safety pins up there, they just show us how the brain and the body are sort of at two ends of a feedback loop. And we want to say that the nervous system is flowing freely both to and from the brain and the body, back and forth. And when the body's able to communicate and understand itself, then we're in a state of ease. And when the body's in a state where it can't communicate itself, it's in a state of dis-ease. So here's a couple images. The big picture in the middle is a picture of a head tilted, and that ring, that vertebra I was showing you before, that's kind of a ring like this. That's illustrated there by the kind of the flat line, or it's kind of tip like this, if you will, in the neck, and it's that red area in the middle is where the brainstem is at, and so it begins to put pressure on the brainstem. The two smaller images show a vertebra that's properly lined up, and it's got the little pink area where the brainstem is occupying that space. It's got a generous amount of space. There's no pressure on it. But in the lower picture where there's subluxation, the vertebra is twisted, and the tissues and the fascia and all the connective tissues, the ligaments and so forth, are causing it to stress and press and compress down onto that brainstem, and that can cause sickness and disease in the body. There's no question about it. Even your neurologist would acknowledge that if you have stenosis or pressure on the brainstem, it can cause almost any kind of disease in the body. So in this picture, what we're showing, and the maker of this picture is showing how an atlas misalignment, that first vertebra up at the top where the arrow is kind of sliding down to the right, it forces the spine then to compensate and creates a body imbalance. And that literally can create a scoliosis and a curvature in the spine. It can kind of force the body to adapt and twist. And that can create stresses in the lower back. And so a person with an upper misalignment in their upper neck can develop problems down low in their back. But by the same token, a person with troubles in their lower back can cause twisting and rotation, and it can lead to something up in the neck. So it's an interesting thing that one area of dysfunction in the body can begat, if you will, another area of dysfunction in the body. So subluxation in your life. Here are some of the things that can happen when you're subluxated. You can get an increased feeling of stress. You can have fear, anxiety, depression, physical pain. It can affect your short-term memory, your ability to concentrate, learn new material, and actually decrease your IQ. I can't tell you how many times in the nearly 30 years of my practice I've had people say, when I get adjusted, I just feel like I can remember things better. Like before, I had trouble with keeping track of a list in my head. I always had to write things down. But when I get adjusted, it's like my brain is clear. There's no more fog, and I can remember stuff. I remember names better. I'm better at my job, or I'm better at practicing my musical instrument when I've been adjusted, because I just feel clear. So that's kind of an interesting benefit of getting adjusted. So on the other converse of that, when you're out of alignment, it causes impaired focus and attention. It can affect our decision making and our daily performance. When we're in pain, we don't necessarily make the most healthy decisions. It also decreases serotonin levels and increased noradrenaline levels, affecting our ability to rest and affect how our adrenal glands function. In addition to that, it impairs the body's ability to maintain itself. Homeostasis is that thing we learned about in middle school, where the body's always just trying to keep itself at the right level, so that my heartbeat should kind of at rest should always be at a certain level, and when I exercise it should go up a little bit, but when I rest it should come back down. When I'm exercising, my inspiration, my breathing is going to increase a little bit, but once I slow down and rest again, it should come back down to here. It maintains my temperature and my blood pressure and so on. Homeostasis, the body's always just trying to repair itself and keep itself healthy. But when we're subluxated, the body has difficulty maintaining these systems and keeping them where they're healthy for us. And so it impairs our repair systems. In addition, what we've learned is that it decreases the cellular immunity. It affects our ability to heal from our wounds, and it affects our organs' health. It affects human growth hormone and testosterone and sex drive. I can tell you in nearly 30 years of practice that many people have come in and said, since I've been getting adjusted, I can perform better sexually. There's a related topic to that here that we're going to cover in a moment. And people tell us that when they're getting adjusted, they often sleep better. Well, if you sleep better, your body can be more healthy as well. So one good thing can lead to another good thing. Basically, when a person is subluxated, it can cause increased insulin resistance, and that can lead then to muscle breakdown and premature aging. It's a fascinating thing. Some of the people who seem the youngest in my practice are people who've been under care the longest. So, how should we invest in our health? Well, under chiropractic, research shows that if you're under chiropractic, your life expectancy can go up 14 to 20 years. That your DNA repair is improved. That people under chiropractic care are 85% less likely to be taking medications. And the costs of medications are less for those as well. That there's literally a 60% lifetime savings in overall healthcare costs when someone's under chiropractic care on a regular basis. Some research we're going to look at in a second, but I'll just kind of tell you what it's going to show first. That there's a 400% stronger immune response system. That there's a 90% less chronic illness rate. There's a 90% less infectious disease rate. And there's 37 markers of the human health that are improved. Okay. Now these 37 markers are basically heart rate is controlled better, blood pressure is regulated better, respiratory system is better, immune competency is better. It's shown that when people are adjusted, that there's an increase in the number of white blood cells almost immediately available to the bloodstream to go and sort of ferret out bacteria and viruses. Hormonal regulation is better. We see that in women who have irregular menstrual cycles. When they start under chiropractic care, very often their cycles become more regular. As we already mentioned, sleep rhythms are better, sleep is better, cognitive and decision making can improve, digestive function is improved, movement, balance, motor control, and so on and so forth. 37 total things. When they looked at these things, the people under chiropractic care just performed better than the people who didn't. So basically, here's the chart. A study done by Ronald Perot, a PhD, Chief of Cancer Prevention Research at the New York Preventive Medicine Institute, in association with a chiropractic-based, the Chiropractic Basic Science Research Foundation, along with the University of Lund in Lund, Sweden, showed that individuals with cancer had a predictable, they'd measured it before, in other studies, they had a predictable level of immune competence, illustrated by the orange bar. Then they had people who were not under chiropractic care, but they did not have cancer, and those people also had a predictable and previously evaluated number. They were 200% better than the cancer patients. So these were two known numbers, and they showed up the same in the study by Dr. Perot. But what they found, what was amazing, and it was so astronomically outside what they expected, that they performed the test several times. But what they found was that chiropractic patients had a 400% greater immune responsiveness than the other groups. It's an incredible thing. And what they found out was that these were people who were under long-term care, and this didn't change with whether they were young or old. So even the older people still had a much better immune responsiveness. The lifetime chiropractic care increases the amount of serum thiol that is put into the body. That's a good thing. Long-term chiropractic care is shown to limit DNA damage, to limit gene mutation, to limit genetic expression of the cancer gene, to increase DNA repair, telomere lengthening. And this is all the rage now in the anti-aging business. There are companies out there who are developing supplements that you can take that do this very thing, that are there to help increase DNA repair, that are helping to lengthen the telomeres, to limit the genetic mutation. And chiropractic is one of those things that does it without supplementation. So imagine what we could do if we ate right, we took the right supplements, and we were adjusted. We could definitely anticipate we're going to live longer and better with fewer illnesses. A study of lifetime care showed in 311 chiropractic patients ages 65 and older, those who'd received maintenance care for 5 years or longer, basically 60% fewer hospital admissions, 59% fewer hospitalized days, 62% less outpatient surgeries, 85% less pharmaceutical costs. Now, I want you to understand, start thinking there's costs with every one of these hospital admissions. There's costs associated with being in a hospital for extended stays. There's cost associated with outpatient surgeries and the drugs given to manage this thing. And the people who are under care have fewer of these costs. That's more money into your own pocket. That's an amazing thing. Imagine what we could do if the entire planet was under chiropractic care and these costs would go down. They'd have to reallocate some of these industries because we'd be using so much less medication. We could probably shrink the number of beds that every hospital has in their community. And probably we'd be putting some people out of business because treating chronic care with acute care measures doesn't work well. But if we could understand that subluxation is a chronic recurring thing and we treat it with a chronic strategy, with a chronic plan, or that's not really a good word, but we can treat it with a plan over time, we can improve people's health care and reduce their risk of illness and sickness. So we're starting to wrap up here now, and what I wanted to tell you is I got a couple of quotes and a couple of stories. When health is absent, wisdom cannot reveal itself. Art cannot manifest. Strength cannot fight. Wealth becomes useless. And intelligence cannot be applied. When we are sick, we cannot be our most creative selves. We cannot be our strongest selves. We cannot, and our money is worth nothing to us. So I want to share this picture with you to tell you of a person that just recently came into our office. This young lady came into our office, and for a long time, she and her husband have been trying to get pregnant. And when we did the case history and so on, we found a number of things in their lifestyle that were adversely affecting their health. And when we did the physical examination, we found a number of things with regard to their spine that are suggestive that they have long-term, chronic, recurrent subluxation misalignment. And as sure as Christopher Reeves fell off his horse and it caused him to have dysfunction of such a magnitude that it put him in a wheelchair the rest of his life, there is it's almost certain that the problems that this person has with their spine are contributing to some, if not all, of their healthcare problems. Because their hormones are out of balance, which makes it hard to have a baby. Their stress on their tissues that make it hard for the uterus to maintain a pregnancy. This person has had multiple. I mean, I'm not even going to say how many because it could identify someone, but they've had multiple miscarriages because of the lifestyle and likelihood the dysfunction of their neurological system. I'm so excited for this person because I believe we can help them to eventually have a child. I won't promise it because we do not do fertility care. We do subluxation reduction, spinal correction. So Ralph Waldo Emerson, he said it this way: the first wealth is health. And it's true. If we have a strong physical mind and a strong mind and a strong body, we can apply ourselves to almost any type of thing, and we might be able to create health or wealth for ourselves. But if we don't have those things available, it's very difficult for us to create an income stream. It's very difficult. We're more likely to be disabled. I have this picture here because it's kind of the antithesis of one of our patients. One of our patients was born, and I don't know when it developed, but soon they realized this young patient was autistic. We have a few of these in our office. But there's one that comes to mind, and it's just kind of an awesome thing. This young man came to our office, and he couldn't toilet, he couldn't verbalize, and he was awake all night. He would take about a 15 to 20 minute, at the most an hour of a nap, and then he would be up the rest of the night. And so his parents, grandparents would help by getting up in the middle of the night to take care of this guy because he couldn't be alone in the house by himself at night. And so their life was adversely impacted. We can't even calculate the financial impact of it, but just the stress that they had, that this young man brought into their home through no fault of his own. So he starts under care. And one of the first adjustments, he sleeps a couple more hours. And then he keeps getting adjusted, and we have him on a plan, and he's starting to sleep deeper and deeper into the morning. And eventually he's sleeping nearly a full night every single night. And so what relief it is for that family. They feel like they're on vacation. And he begins to behave better in school. Now, he's still autistic. We're not treating autism. We are not going to probably see him ever be diagnosed as not being autistic. But we find out that he's doing better in school, and his behaviors are better in school. His social behaviors are better at school. We find out that he's toileting more often and more successfully. And he's starting to verbalize and say words. And the other day, he said, Dr. Foster. And that's just an amazing thing for me to contemplate, that over a period of time, he's getting adjusted, and it's causing him to have these profound changes. A person said this one time. He says, people are funny. When they're young, they will spend their health to get wealth. And later, they will gladly pay all they have trying to get their health back. And it's true. We often take our health for granted until we've lost it, and then we would spend almost anything to get it back. Now, I'm wrapping up, and I want to close with a story. I share this story often in my workshops, but it's important here. And it's another area of your health is your wealth. This story reminds me of a story that appeared in the book, Chicken Soup for the Soul, for the Chiropractic Soul. Chicken Soup for the Chiropractic Soul. And I know that I have shared stories with you from my practice. This is not one from my practice. This is a story that was submitted. And I just want to tell you the gist of it. This woman is babysitting her grandchild for the weekend. And father comes to pick up the grandchild after spending that weekend with grandma. And the grandmother bends down and picks up the little girl. And the little girl says, Daddy, Grandma loves me now. Of course, Grandma says, honey, I've always loved you. And Dad says, yeah, Grandma's always loved you. And the little girl says, no, Daddy. Only people who pick me up and hug me love me. You see, because that woman had just started seeing a chiropractor for the first time in that little girl's memory, Grandma could pick up the grandchild. Before that, she could not pick up the grandchild. And that's sad by itself. But what's even more sad is that it is in the child's love language. Grandma didn't love her because Grandma didn't pick her up. We, of course, know Grandma loved her. But when I start thinking about your health as your wealth, the opportunities that are missed, the jobs that are not taken, the vacations that are not enjoyed, the experiences that are not had, the love that is not appreciated because we are not healthy or someone in your family is not healthy, I think it's tragic. And when you start coupling that with the expense of being sick, it's even more tragic. And you begin to flip it around and find out that people who are healthy earn more money than the people who are not. It is just an indisputable fact that your health is incredible to your long-term, to your longevity and to your life experiences. Mahatma Gandhi said it this way as well. I mean, many people said it. Your health is your real wealth. So I want to thank you so much for spending this time with me, and I hope that you got a lot out of it. Please, if you didn't get to see it all, find us on Facebook, Fostering Wellness Facebook. Like us there, and I would encourage you to go and you can also watch it from our website because it'll be posted there later today. So thank you so much for joining us. I look forward to talking to you again soon.